All right, unbuttoned, unfiltered, and no less unapologetic. The relationship between the media and police, dicey, challenging, intriguing. It's a complicated one, and I don't think it's gotten any less complicated over the last several months with what's developed across the country. Lots of demands for police accountability, police transparency, and who better to speak about accountability than the guy I've got right here to my right. Jumps up on the couch, gets out of his pajamas. He's been working from home for, gosh.
But I buttoned my, I don't know where you got the unbuttoned thing from. I'm buttoned. Just so we're clear.
My little shtick, man. Look, we're going to have plenty of time to get
There's a lot of buttons on this
build to a crescendo here. Let's not just, get too crazy with ourselves. This is Nick Ochnser, and you want to talk about media and media holding government, especially law enforcement, to account. No better person to speak with about that than Nick. He's been in the business for a while. Starts in Norfolk, Virginia, goes to Texas. Now he's in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is manages their investigative unit with our CBS affiliate here in Charlotte. And he's a Pitbull. I mean, a throwback to what reporters used to be. Holds people to account. Doesn't make a lot of friends along the way. Win any popularity contest, but
friends.
Well, we are friends. We're friends. I suspect that's not what you're in the business for. You're not there to make friends, are you?
No, but I am in the business of trying to get respect from people, right? So you don't have to necessarily like the stories that I'm doing, but I hope at the end of the day you do respect and appreciate the process that we're going through.
You've seen some hell of a lot of stories that have really gotten a lot of attention, holding those government officials to account. There have been policy changes. There have been laws and legislation that's been changed because of some of his coverage. People have lost their jobs, have they not?
People have been indicted.
People have been indicted. I mean, that's how much power, responsibility, reach that the media can wield. This isn't a profession that you take lightly. I know that your profession, has changed considerably over the last several years.
Yeah.
You're kind of a throwback.
Yeah, I guess so. I hear that a lot. Oh, I didn't know there was anyone who still digs in deep on things. I think at the end of the day, the way that we're delivering news and journalism is changing. The business model around that is changing. But people still want good content. And so, and by good content, they want people to tell them things they don't know. They want to hold government accountable. They want people, to do good journalism still. And so the framework and what the business looks like is changing, but I actually think at the end of the day, the mission and the way we do our job is not changed over the course of time.
Well, your flavor, at least from 30,000 feet, looks like a take no prisoners kind of approach to your profession.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that. I'll accept that. I mean, look, I'm in the business of finding the best version of the truth that I can, right? And I say it like that because I'm human just like everyone else, right? And there are always things we're not going to get to. I go into a story thinking there's three sides to every story, right? Yours and the other guys, and then whatever other thing we're not going to get to. But I think, especially in the era that we live now, in the post-truth era, if you will, where people are trying to spin that there can be two versions of the truth. That there can't be. There's one truth, right? And so my job is to figure out what the truth is, or the closest version of the truth we can get to, and then measure that, on the story that we're doing. And so people don't like that sometimes.
Well, and sometimes truth is in the eye of the beholder, right?
No.
Your truth can be different from the truth, could it not?
No, there's one truth ultimately, and there are different perspectives on that truth, right? And so that's where the three sides to the story comes in, but it's the three sides to one truth.
Well, juxtapose perspective to truth. That line can get awfully thin, paper thin sometimes,
I didn't expect the philosophy discussion.
Man of many hats. You don't see nothing. You think it's all just good looks? There's a little capacity here.
No, but actually, these questions are really important and serious, right? There's one truth. People's experiences, their perspective, their positions can change how you might interpret that truth, right? Our daily lives, right? Everything that's going on. But there's one truth, and sometimes people try to cover that up, right? maliciously or unintentionally, and it's my job to expose that.
Let's show a little bit of that, just to give the folks at home who aren't familiar with Nick and the way he approaches things. We'll give you a little bit of a body of work and let you see how he attacks a story.
Sir, we're not done with our questions, though. You still haven't answered. We have fuel logs that show 10 of your senior leadership, well, since you've been commander, that are driving across the state and regularly gassing up all across the state that happen to coordinate with where they live. And so you still haven't answered the question, is it appropriate for these commanders to be putting hundreds of miles, to be spending and thousands of miles, to be...
Excuse me, this is a private meeting, sir. Step back.
Sir, do not touch me.
Step back.
Sir,
Step
do not
back.
touch me. We're in a public space. This is a public elevator. We're going to ask our questions of you. Now, I'm trying to ask you, sir, is it appropriate for your commanders to be putting 30,000 miles on their car in a 6-month period?
All right. Well, that's Ochnser. I mean, that's vintage Nick Ochnser. I've seen it for years. You know, I've been the recipient of it for years, and you know, it's not a comfortable feeling. Media, they wield an enormous responsibility, do they not?
We do have a big responsibility. Journalists always have a big responsibility to be fair, to be accurate, to tell the truth. And I take that really, I try not to take myself seriously. I take my job very seriously because I think we have a really important job.
You know, you're 31 years old. You're about to be 31.
Yes.
Right? A couple of days. 3 Emmys to your credit. You know, at the tender age of 30. I mean, that's an accomplishment and a testament to the way that, just how seriously you do take your craft.
Sure, okay.
Talk about, you know, a lot of our viewers, people who tune in, they you know, they're interested in the law enforcement kind of stuff. And, you know as well as I do, that relationship's always been somewhat of a complicated one. What are your observations when covering law enforcement, frustrations, and better yet, expectations?
My expectations for law enforcement might actually be greater than a lot of other public officials and government agencies, because I think law enforcement officers have a really important and really sacred duty that they perform, right? They sign up, God bless them, and thankfully to go protect and serve, right? They swear an oath. And so they're entrusted with a lot of power to deprive people of their life and liberties, right? And that means that they need to be able to stand up to the strictest scrutiny from the public. And I think we as the public, if we want good and functioning, any part of democracy and society, but if we want good and functioning police agencies, I think the agencies need us to scrutinize them as well, to keep them accountable. That's how this works. You know,
and that is, and it is an important job, and transparency should be critical and a value that police departments possess. You know, we're doing the people's work, and the people should have an opportunity to see what that work looks like, right? Responsible transparency. I think we both agree there. You've been called everything in the book, though. You know, you're a cop hater. You know, you're just sensationalizing. You're a shit stirrer. You know, where are you? Who are you?
Look, I'm a guy who believes in accountability and transparency, and if we try to go get that from anybody, but especially from a police agency, I'm going to dig in deep, right? I find so often when I start looking at a story, I might make a couple calls, I might send a records request, I might do whatever, and sometimes if there's nothing to hide, people say, here you go, here's the thing. Maybe it's a story, maybe it's a little story, maybe it's not a story at all. Other times people say, we're not giving you this. And immediately my alarm bells start going off, because that means there's something there that they want to hide, right? I mean, I got a sheriff indicted because I sent him a records request, and his response was to go complain about the records request at the next county commission meeting. I didn't really have that big of an interest in the story. It was kind of a fishing expedition, and it led to him getting indicted. And had he just produced the information that I asked for,
yeah, it would have been a non-starter, and he resurrected a story or manufactured a story.
Manufactured a story in that case.
Yeah, just because of the you know, the ill-advised strategy, if you want to call it a strategy.
Not sure he had one, but yes.
You know, none of this is lost on me. And having been in this profession and his profession, you know, full disclosure, recovering journalist, I had departed your station, left for other pastures before his arrival, thank heaven. I don't know if we'd be able to share some workspace.
We would have been in the same newsroom.
Right. We're having a tough enough time sharing the same couch together. So, you know, I was there, been here though on the law enforcement side about 30 years, and I think you hit on something. You know, this is a profession law enforcement has that's traditionally been very guarded, right? Yes. Very guarded. Nothing to see here. Everybody hides under their desk. You know, media has been traditionally seen as nothing but a burden. You know, there has been just a monumental shift in what expectations are of law enforcement, especially now. Are you starting to see that shift? And you're not hurting my feelings. I know we work a lot together.
We're starting to see, I think, a shift that more chiefs are realizing they have to be transparent. But it's still really, I think, and at the end of the day, it's really up to the police executive, the leadership of a police department to set the tone and culture for whether or not and how transparent they want to be.
Yeah, I work with departments all over the world. But here in the country, you know, I'm starting to see the shift. You know, and it's a slow creep. You know, it's like turning that cruise ship around.
Sure.
You know, it's not going to happen overnight. And you know, I think it's a damn shame that it took arguably a national crisis to grab the attention of the profession. I'm always of the mind that very little of what police do should be shrouded in mystery. You know, again, it is the people's work, and barring it, impeding some kind of investigation, the integrity of investigation, or outing a victim of a sex assault, or a survivor of a sex assault, and it's the people's work. A lot of work that's got to be done still in the profession, but I'm kind of encouraged to see that things are starting to move in the right direction, albeit a slow move, but a move nonetheless. How about the demonstrations, man? I know you haven't been too much on the ground. A lot of your colleagues have been on the ground.
A lot of hard work, both from officers and news reporters in this town.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts there? What are you hearing back from some of your colleagues on how things are developing on the streets, the community?
I think the community here in Charlotte is still very frustrated, and I think rightfully so, because what we have right now, and you're going to disagree with this, so what we have right now is the city and the police department and CMPD that are trying to be transparent, but we're not getting full transparency.
Well, give me an example.
We're not getting use of force reports on the June 2nd tear gas incident. Your department could release those reports, and you're not. Straightforward. We're, filing for body camera petitions to release some video, but then it takes 2 months. That's not the fault of the police, but that's what the public's seeing, right? We want to release this stuff right away. Well, then we got to sit and wait.
And just unpack that, because I'll lose my train of thought, because I don't have the brain of a 30-year-old anymore. Not that you have the brain of a 30-year-old. Sometimes I wonder myself.
The neurons are still firing faster.
That's a story for a beer. But back it up on the body-worn kind of stuff. That's frustrating for us, for the department too. There's things that we want to push proactively, but I think I do. I know we operate in one of the more restrictive states when it comes to the
probably the most restrictive, and
that's tough. Not only for the media, the community. They want that full, fast transparency. We too, as an organization, there are times when we want things out there faster, we've got to wait in line just like everybody else. So we share your frustration. I know you've worked and talked with legislators who are, they vowed to revisit the legislation to see if there is a way.
We're going to hold them to that.
Process. Yep. So I do agree there. Back on those use of force reports, I know that they were protected, and we don't have to get too
They're not protected
under state statute. Attorney says they are, but
they're not protected.
But I will say this, off the record, there's some conversations that are going on behind the scenes to see if we could find some kind of compromise there. I didn't want to ruin the surprise. I was going to spring it on you for your 31st birthday, but what the hell?
It's ruining a story I'm working on. That's what you're doing. That's what
we'll just cut that part out. You know how the selective editing thing works. You more than okay. Well, we'll get there in just a little bit. So you keep going with that though. The transparency.
And then I still think, look, if you want to get someone on camera from CMPD, right? Not all this is some of this is just a matter of logistics. But if I want to get someone on camera from CMPD, most of the time I still got to show up to a Wednesday media briefing, right? And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. The media briefings are great, right? We didn't used to have those, so I applaud you guys for putting people on camera.
You can bank on them just about every week, once a week at least, to get out there, whatever's emerging, whatever looming questions that the press has, they always know they have a standing opportunity weekly to get in front of leadership or subject matter
which is great, and I think those are good steps, right? But sometimes I think we can let stuff like that get in the way. Look, we have a weekly press conference. Well, that doesn't mean that you're fully functionally transparent all the time, right? Because I might still not be able to get my questions answered on a story. I might still not be able to get the documents that you're supposed to give me. So I think you guys, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, have done better than a lot of other agencies.
Oh, hold on a second.
I know.
Need,
I know.
Like, a defibrillator.
Look,
fall off the couch.
I'm glad it's on
cardiac
tape.
Arrest. He just threw out a compliment.
I'm glad it's on tape.
Don't blink because you're going to miss it. And his last one was his first one. So just truth be known.
But I think there's but I think there are still more ways to improve, especially when it comes to making sure you release the full. You could release more, and you should release more information on police reports. You could get those turned around faster, right? And again, some of this is just a matter of manpower and logistics, and there are physical limits to what you can do. Yeah. But other stuff, I think you guys, if you wanted to, you're a smart man. You could put your head together with some other smart people and figure out a way to do it if you wanted.
Yeah, I'm certainly not the brains behind the outfit.
No one ever thought that. No one's accused you of that.
Abysmal disaster.
I promise.
At best. No, I do agree. There's always room for opportunity and development and more transparency, responsible transparency. And again, at the end of the day, it's the people's work, and the people have a right to know how that work is being done. Let's flip it, man. How about your profession? You guys, look, you're not a perfect profession either. And if you want to believe polling, some of us do and some of us don't. You guys, polling approval rating for the media kind of rivals prostate cancer right now. That's the truth.
Local news, because this is
right,
the problem of painting the media. There's not the media. We don't have meetings where the media gets together and.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this, and he's right. At the local level, editorial meetings every day that they don't take place in some smoke-filled back room where they all just get together and conspire. How are we going to stick it to government? How are we going to stick it to the cops? But conversely, they're not talking about, how are we going to make the community better? How are we going to make it safer?
I disagree with that.
What those conversations in those meetings always, and you're not going to sit here with a straight face tell me is how are we going to beat the guys across the street? What do they got? What are they doing? How do we trump them?
I don't actually think that drives in the local media. So first, let's get back to correcting your inaccuracy. Local media has some of the highest trust and favorability ratings in the country. Local media. True. And that's separate us from MSNBC and Fox and CNN, separate us from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, right? People are turning to local media and largely local television still in this country for their unbiased, trustworthy news.
And he's absolutely right. In fact, I think it was Rasmussen that just put something out not too long ago when they were juxtaposing local media to national media. National media, I mean, they're just in the
But again, that's why you can't just say media, because we're not all the same.
Hey,
we're not all the same
who are you talking to about being painted with one broad brush? I mean, when you have a profession, when you have a department like ours that's painted with one broad brush, 1,200 miles away, something happens somewhere else, in Minneapolis, and we're paying the penance for it. So that's not lost on me. I could understand why you would take offense to that. But there have been missteps, even locally here.
And look, what did I say 10 minutes ago? No one's human. Or no one's human. Everyone's human. No one's perfect, right? And so I think we're trying to do the best we can. I think at the end of the day, you have fast-moving situations, right? And you've got the biggest thing that's probably changed, especially, in media everywhere. I was going to try to whittle it down, but no, I think it's changed everywhere, is we have younger people getting hired in bigger markets faster, right? So that means less experience. It used to be if you were going to come to a town like Charlotte, you'd have 5 or 6 years in the business before you got here, right? Now people are getting hired at every station in this market with 2 or 3 years of experience.
And it's just the nature of the business. Fewer horses to run with. That their profession or their field, they're scaling back. Hiring them on the cheap right out of college, have very little idea how the world works yet, much less how law enforcement world works. So I'll own this. It's incumbent upon us, the profession in law enforcement, to walk those green reporters, those newly minted reporters, get them immersed in process and rules of conduct and expectations, because you're going to have these reporters that still believe that a police officer, that was involved in a tragic, fatal officer-involved shooting, somebody armed with a gun. Why didn't you shoot the gun out of his hand? Right. And we could sit around and kick it around and laugh all day. But if that's their truth, that's what they're seeing on the television crime shows, and that's their reality. They don't know it would take a marksman 100 times to precisely shoot a gun out of.
And that doesn't excuse. That is not an excuse for anyone in the media to not know, right? It just, when you look at the kind of what's happening in the local media. So, but it's happening at networks, happening at big newspapers. I mean, big newspapers are hiring people out of college to go work there right now.
And
right?
I think we own it. You know, and it's probably not going to land well in some of my circles. You know, I think we own some of that because of our, you know, reluctance traditionally to bring them in. They're never going to understand our world, reporters, journalists, unless we give them a glimpse.
Or the public, not just...
And I'm glad you said that, because you're not my audience. I mean, I love you to death. You know, I'll have a beer with you. I've had a few beers with Nick. But at the end of the day, the community's my audience.
No, that's right.
And it's not lost on me for a second, the enormous reach, influence, and trust factor that local media does wield.
Well,
so I'm talking to my community.
We act on behalf of the public, right? To inform the public, to be the public's eyes and ears, to hold you guys accountable for the public, right? And we do that. We hold you guys accountable, and we also share some good things too sometimes. I don't, but someone does.
I never talk to them.
But you know, so I think it is important for the public to understand, and for the media to remind ourselves that we have people who are younger, less experienced, out doing the job.
But you know what? You don't get a pass on that. That would be like me saying we're hiring kids right out of college, and if, you know, they wind up in a situation that develops that's tragic or worse yet,
I don't think we should have a pass.
You got to give us a pass.
I don't think we should have a pass. I'm saying it's important for us to remember that, because we need to redouble our efforts to train and equip our folks. But you asked the question. I'm giving you the answer to your question.
I
happens to be an honest one.
Well, yeah, in the eye of the beholder again, perspective and honesty. But I want to hit rewind. You mentioned something about the way that your business has evolved over the last couple of years. It's fast-paced. The cycle is fast-paced.
Very fast.
But isn't it more important? So I guess what you were trying to say is that, you know, sometimes there's going to be missteps. Is it more important to get it right than get it fast?
Yes. Yes, that it is more important to get it right than get it fast.
See, and I think that harkens back to where I was going before, when I think what the real intention is here is to beat the guys across the street.
No,
come on, you have a feather in your cap every time that you could say exclusive or we broke it first. You saw it here first.
How many times do you hear me say the word exclusive?
You're a different type because you're a longer term investigator.
And that's the culture at WBTV. I can only talk about where I work at WBTV, right? But I am lucky to work for bosses where we don't look at click counts. I don't get called into the boss's office when my story gets a bad rating from the night before.
Yeah, I know what you do get called in your office about.
Why?
Tell? Nothing off limits. Oh, now all of a sudden Ochnser's going to shut down. There's the transparency.
Oh, yeah, not wearing socks. That's right. Yeah. No, that's right. I do.
That's where the value. That's where they find their value in the profession. Now, obviously, that was a big enough ticket item for it to get.
Well, I knew I was coming on some lowbrow show with a guy like you, so I could get away with not wearing socks today.
There are no shows.
Oh, okay. All right. Look, I'm full Richard Burr. I'm full. You know, Senator Burr doesn't wear socks year round. But no, there's not. I think that is actually a misconception from guys like you who propagate this myth that all we care about are, you know, big ratings and beating the competition. Are we competitive? Yes. Am I in this business in part because I like to win? No, absolutely. And would a lot of other reporters tell you that? Yeah, absolutely. But that is not. We don't go into our editorial meetings every day and say, okay, what can we do to scoop these guys today? That's not how we do our job. That is not how we do our job. And you will rarely hear or see the word exclusive on WBTV.
Well, why even have Nielsen come in and rate?
So that we can tell our advertisers the value they're getting for the dollars we're still a business.
Oh, you know, maybe that would shock some people at home who aren't intimately familiar with the profession. So how is the profession financed?
Through advertising. I don't think that's a mystery, right? Look, you don't have to subscribe to watch WBTV. You don't have to pay cable. You can get us free over the air, right? So what does that mean? We got to make our money somehow, and we make our money by selling ads. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, I want us to make as much money as possible so that we have as much money as we can to go sue you guys when you violate the Public Records Act.
This ain't about me. We're talking about you right now. So you know, and I'm a moron, so I'm just we're simple guy. So if I'm hearing you right, the higher the ratings, the more money you could charge the advertisers, the more money that a journalist could make or benefit from.
I've never worked in sales. I don't really talk to the sales folks, but generally speaking, that's how the economics of the news business works.
And I don't know if a lot of people at home, you know, could understand that or appreciate that. And look, I'm all about capitalism.
But again, I think it's actually also really important that I've never, ever, ever had ratings pressure. Never, ever, ever have I had ratings pressure. Now, do I want us to have good ratings? Yeah, because I want people to watch my stuff. That means people are watching my stories, right?
And they do. He does do a hell of a job.
But, you know, I know the stations in this market we each have our flavor, right? We kind of have our brand, our strategies, and each of us does a pretty good job of sticking to and executing our brand and strategies, and the numbers go up and down. They always go up and down. And so again, I think it's a myth that all we care about are our numbers, the number of clicks we get on a website. Do we care about that stuff? Yeah, that's a measure of one measure of our effectiveness, right? Are people watching? Mm-hmm. You want people to watch your stuff. But that's not why we're doing the job that we're doing.
How else do you quantify success independent of ratings? How do you quantify whether you're being successful and having impact?
Yeah, well, I actually just quantify, me personally, quantify the success in the amount of impact that I'm having, right? Am I getting laws changed? Mm-hmm. Am I prompting, you know, court officials to do something? Are we exposing wrongdoing? Are we helping people?
Sure.
Right? I mean, our unit is helping fix people's medical bills and get people their money back that got ripped off, and we're exposing, you know, fraud, waste, and abuse at the local level. We're, you know, doing stuff at the state level. And so what's most important for me is that we're helping people, we're exposing corruption, and that we're having an impact.
Comfort the afflicted.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I care much more about that than I care about ratings. I spend about 5 minutes a week, maybe cumulatively, looking at ratings. Yeah. I spend an awful lot of time thinking about the impact we've had in our community.
I don't just want to get down too far into the weeds, but you know, I think it is important for people to understand just how things work. You know, the inner workings of the field and the profession. By the way, and don't misinterpret anybody at home. And maybe I'm in the minority on the law enforcement side. I still believe in the profession. I think it's critically important, damn important profession, that you do have that fourth estate, that do hold people to account. Where I'm getting kind of hung up on a number of fronts, I'll unpack a couple of where I'm kind of going off the reservation somewhat and a little bit underwhelmed. You know, really hard, not so much locally, a smidge locally, to really be able to tell the difference between editorializing, activism, and then journalism. And that line is becoming more and more blind.
There is a debate in the journalism world right now. Again, we're not the media, we're not all one monolith. There's a debate amongst people who are journalists as to whether or not we should be more activist or if we should stick to the neutral, reciter of fact, right? Now, that debate's really playing out at the national level between guys like Wes Lowery and Dean Baquet, the editor of the New York Times. Wes Lowery came from the Washington Post and is at 60 Minutes on now. So, you know.
What's the expectation of the citizenry, though? Not activism or they just want objectiveness.
I don't think the public actually has and it's our fault. And it makes our job harder at the same time. I don't think the public has a clear concept of what journalism is. I mean, let's just be really clear. Sean Hannity, not a journalist. Rachel Maddow, also not a journalist, right?
No, opinion.
But they both have highly rated shows on a place that calls themselves a news channel and does do news sometimes.
But I don't think anybody's tuning into a Maddow or a Hannity with the expectation that they're getting straight news with an objective flavor.
But I don't know that they do, and I think that makes my job harder, right? And I don't know that Hannity or Maddow would claim to be. I don't know, but that's not news.
But I think the expectations have been there for the networks. You know, you put on the Fox, you know what you're going to get. You put on the MSNBC, you know what you're going to get, and you put on CNN. Maybe if you're in the airport, I don't know who's putting on CNN, but maybe somebody's putting on CNN.
A lot of people. They're doing a good product.
So, do you see it creeping in locally, though? Do you see some of that activism
no,
line?
I don't see that. At least not here.
You don't see that?
No, not on purpose. Not from a top-down driven thing. I don't see anyone pushing the line to be an activist in this market.
Do you think it's hard for a journalist? Look, we're all people. and we all have professions, and you should be able to differentiate and put aside your personal opinions, especially, you know, in your profession.
My job is for you to not know what my opinion is.
Oh, I know what his opinion is.
I have a lot of opinions, right? Just like everyone else in this
just ask
world.
his wife, who, by the way, you got the better end of that
better,
deal.
much better.
Oh,
yes.
my gosh.
Yes.
His wife, a journalist who works for the Associated Press,
Yes.
he certainly got the better end of the
I did.
deal.
The
right?
very lucky man. No argument here.
Oh, gosh.
No argument here.
An angel, and how Sarah Blake puts up with this is just beyond me.
But
well, so you're not seeing that. You don't. How do you leave that? And I know you're an opinionated guy. How did journalists leave that behind? I mean, I look at some of their personal social media, and you know, I know it's no barometer. They are resolute and have very strong convictions about very important issues. And then you kind of see, you know, and maybe it's my dog whistle kind of thing. You kind of see it bleeding into the product, do you not?
I don't think so. One, that's the danger of living in the social media world, right? That I got to guard myself against. I mean, trust me.
And he doesn't do it much.
There are a lot of times on this.
Personally,
you know,
right? You don't do it much.
No, there are a lot of times where I got one Twitter account. You know, some reporters have two, right? One for work, one for personal. The problem is that's not how that works. So I spend a lot of time writing tweets and then hitting delete, right? You know, no, Nick, you really shouldn't say that now. And so.
I should have applied some of that. I'll tell you
I've saved myself a lot of heartache by just walking away, trying to learn the hard way, man. But we live in this era of social media where people are so much more accessible. I mean, you're more accessible, I'm more accessible, the police chief's more accessible, the mayor's more accessible, and we have these platforms. So, you know, we get whether it's deeper or not, we get more insight into someone's psyche and what they think because they're putting it out there. And so,
do you think reporters can leave their personal?
They've been doing it since the dawn of journalism. They've been doing it since the dawn.
Again, maybe it's my dog whistle thing. I just see.
Oh, look,
it's like some of that activism, some of their convictions are starting to creep into the product, and you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, and maybe it's just my personal thing. I'm not going to out anybody, but it seems, especially of late.
If you want to talk about people closing ranks, I mean, let's talk about police.
Yeah.
We've seen CMPD come out and defend the outright intentional gassing of citizens on the street in the last 3 weeks. There was no one punished for the actual. There was no one punished for the actual planned gassing of, and that's what it was, of residents. There was one sergeant punished for saying some inappropriate things. The rest of what you guys said was that there were no policy violations here. Let's go back. Let's go back and talk about.
Well, let's
go back and talk about.
Out there saying that we were defending it. I don't recollect that. I've been along every step of the way through that whole disaster.
Who was held accountable?
It was if you let me finish, I'll tell you.
Who was held accountable?
I'm going to tell you.
I look for this will be we're breaking news here because
come up for air and let me tell you, right? No one is going to defend. It was indefensible. It was just horrible. Was it within policy? Absolutely. But did it meet the expectations? Absolutely not.
That is not the language we've heard from the CMPD leadership.
We explained this, and we continue
to this very day. Why is no one being held accountable for that?
Because that's a very broad assertion that we were trying to defend. Nobody was trying to. We try to explain what occurred. We also try to explain that it was not consistent with expectations. It may have been consistent with policy at the time, not consistent with the expectations, to the extent that we changed policy within days of it.
Rob, there were multiple officers on camera talking about multiple, not just the one, who's the fall guy, I guess. Multiple officers on camera.
What you call him, the fall guy?
I
think it was a sergeant who made some, off-color remarks and didn't align with expectations.
No argument here about a plan that other leadership at CMPD put into place. And we're going to gas them here and we're going to hit them here and we're going to gas them there. That's not they meant to give them an escape and this didn't get executed properly. No, it's clear from the video, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but again, that is released because you guys petitioned.
It gives me yet another opportunity to clarify some of the misinformation.
No, I'm saying I can't believe I'm giving you credit for being transparent again. But that's released because you guys filed the petition. Okay, so I'll give you credit for that. But it is clear in the video that this was not an accidental maneuver that didn't get executed properly. There are people specifically talking about trapping protesters with tear gas. That is an intentional gassing of people in the streets. One dude's been punished.
Said was an intentional misrepresentation of what was on those videos.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's not even close to what was said.
That's not true.
You know, and we could also link the video.
You should do that so people can go listen to themselves. When I listen to that, I hear guys talking about we're gonna hit their ass here, and we're gonna hit their ass there, and we're gonna hit their ass there. Where's the part where they're supposed to egress out of the street, Rob?
Well, the egress points were the points that apparently, because of that ill-timed choreography of the event, they were covered. They may not have been physically obstructed, but they were visibly obstructed by that by that gas.
And so no one was talking about that. I'm just asking the question, Rob. Where was the accountability for anyone who actually came up with the plan that, by your own admission here, trapped people on the streets of Charlotte?
Inadvertently, that wasn't what the plan wasn't to trap. It was
we're going to hit their ass here. We're going to hit their ass here. We're going to hit their ass here.
And these were going to be the egress points.
No one said these are going to be the egress points in the video.
But that was part of the plan. And you asked for accountability. No one said egress points. You asked for the accountability. How do you hold someone to account who followed policy? There weren't any policy violations. Even the Office of Domestic Preparedness says that it's perfectly appropriate to pull a maneuver like that, provided you give them egress points. At the end of the day, I think we both agree that both of our professions, they wield enormous power, enormous responsibility.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we could align there.
We do align. We align on a lot of things. And I will continue holding you guys to account, to be
and you should.
Public and transparent, right? I've done that. I will continue to do that because it is important. It is important that the public know what you guys are doing, and it is important that CMPD thinks it has to be accountable to the public.
Right. And you do believe that that's a value that we possess?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah, and not just here. Again, it's encouraging to see that the rest of the country is starting to come to that conclusion as well. I'm not going to sit here with a straight face and say it's a perfect profession. Lord knows we've been both close enough to it to recognize that there is room for improvement. But I think just keeping these kind of conversations and unpacking these kind of things is an important step into making it a better profession. Your profession too. Room for improvement there.
You're never going to hear me say that I or the profession is perfect. Everyone always has room for improvement.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important to have the accountability.
Yeah. What are you doing for your 31st birthday?
Nothing. Drinking good bourbon. I haven't decided what good bourbon to drink yet, but I'm going to drink some good bourbon.
He's a bourbon guy.
Yeah.
He's been a bourbon guy. You drink the hell out of an IPA too,
I'm not an IPA guy.
What are you drinking?
No, I like a good lager, a good Hefeweizen. Yeah, it's.
And just for those who watch at home, watch Nick frequently. This isn't shtick. What you see on TV or here, he's just as much of a pain in the ass.
For better or for worse,
I've been out with
it's
him.
all real.
He's exhausting. So I will say that, it's not window dressing. What you see is what you get with Ochnser. Hey, I'm glad I got to see you.
Yeah, this is good.
I got you out of pajamas off the couch and
I'm all buttoned. No unbuttoning here.
The elitist just working from his, just his sprawling McMansion somewhere in town, from his couch in his pajamas, drinking his coffee. I'm
a tea guy. Thank you.
Well, that's a story for another. I can unpack that. Maybe I will over a beer. We appreciate you, honestly.
Thanks for having me. This is good.
It was a good, healthy back and forth.
This is good.
We need, all of us, I think we need to do more of this. You're never going to move the needle unless we have these tough conversations.
You know me, I love to talk.
Oh, he does.
This guy.
Hey, we appreciate everyone at home. Know how busy everyone is. So many things to do, so many places to do it. We're just immensely grateful that you would find a couple of minutes to do it with us. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay tuned.